Mill work was difficult. The hours were long, the work was heavy, and the air in the factory was hard to breathe. Over the course of about 100 years where workers were working inside this factory, men, women, and children worked here. Before the Civil War, both free and enslaved people. The factory owners, of course, wanted their factory workers to show up for work, wanted them to be happy here, more or less. Around me, there were many workers' houses, a church was built, and other kind of amusements were arranged for factory workers, but it certainly didn't lift them out of poverty. Over time, the kind of more privileged women of Athens looked at the problems of the mill workers living in their midst and began outreach. So quite remarkably, we can say that social work in Athens began with outreach to the men, women, and children who worked in this building when it was the Athens Manufacturing Company. I am Dr. Jane McPherson. I'm an associate professor here at the School of Social Work, and I use these histories in my teaching. Welcome.
Working at the mill was difficult. It was unhealthy and dangerous, and injuries were reported, limbs were lost, and both observers and mill workers complained. After the Civil War, mill work was racially segregated. White workers, many of them women and children, ran the mill machinery, and black employees were restricted to outdoor labor. These photos of mill worker children were taken in Georgia around 1910 by Lewis Hine. There are no photos of Athens factory workers that we know of, but there is one photo of child employees of the Whitehall Mill just south of Athens in the collection at the Athens Public Library. According to fifth grader Ben Bowles, he and his mill worker buddies had fun sometimes, but he said, it's dangerous work if you're not careful. The white mill workers and their families lived in mill communities in houses that were owned by the factory. Henry Hunt recalled his 1870s childhood in a 1939 interview with the Federal Writers Project. His parents, his grandparents, his aunts, his uncles, his siblings, everybody worked for the Athens Manufacturing Company, beginning before the Civil War and lasting through his birth in 1871 and at least until 1900. He was born in a house that belonged to the company, and he remembers that the company president, Robert Bloomfield, knew all the mill children's names. He remembers that Bloomfield built St. Mary's Church for them and closed the mill down during a few weeks in the summer, he said, to give us an opportunity to enjoy eating the watermelons. Though Henry Hunt had many good memories, he described the conditions in the mill just as others had. He said, "In my young days, the life of a mill worker wasn't very long. The close confinement, the long hours, the lint and the dust they had to breathe, all worked together to shorten our lives." So, though Bloomfield provided many services and sent the doctor out to tend to sick employees, he also monitored his workers with a heavy hand. He did not allow his workers to organize, and when some small boys tried to strike so that they could go to the county fair, he fired the leaders. Bloomfield's workers, including children, regularly worked 12-hour shifts for low wages, and his ministrations did not erase poverty, illness, or illiteracy. These problems, especially among women and children, attracted the attention of Athens' charitably minded women. Near the end of the 19th century, the privileged white women of Athens opened the first social work type services to serve and uplift the mill families. The Athens Industrial Home, later called the Bessie Mell Home, was the first of these services that I'm aware of. Bessie Mell taught hand sewing to children and provided piecework and meals to women who could no longer work those long hours on their feet. Then the night school opened in 1899, and this was a huge success. After children got off work at 6 p.m., they went to school. Hundreds of children and some adults showed up to learn. A.G. Dudley, who went on to become mayor of Athens and president of the Athens Manufacturing Company, actually began life as a mill worker, and he graduated from the night school. And the night school taught more than just reading and arithmetic. Public health lessons were taught. In this early 20th century campaign, children competed to kill and collect the most flies, and the winning child brought in more than 80,000, winning $5 from Millie Rutherford, then the historian general of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. The night school expanded. It was really providing much more service than simply school, and it expanded into something called the neighborhood house, which was located where the Dairy Queen is now. Miss Louie Lane was principal of the night school, and she wanted to provide more kinds of training and more home spaces and showers for mill families. The neighborhood house hired its first social worker around 1915. At that same time, across town, the Hiawassee settlement was also opening to serve the employees at the Southern Mill. So, as you visit the old Athens Factory, please remember the men, women, and children, including those who were enslaved here before the Civil War. If you're curious and you want to learn more, you can check out my website at complexcloth.org or follow me on Instagram at complexcloth1832.